Hey everybody, my name is Anna and welcome back to the Dinomite Explorers program. This is week 6 of our program. So last time we learned all about the Megalosaurus, which was the very first dinosaur ever discovered and named. So if you missed it, make sure that you find it and check it out on our YouTube channel. But this week we are going to learn about one of the largest prehistoric aquatic reptiles, the Mosasaurus. So when and where did the Mosasaurus live? Well, the Mosasaurus lived 68 to 66 million years ago during the Maastrichtian age of the late Cretaceous period. And this is an approximation. Scientists aren't totally sure when they lived, but this is about the best guess that they have. There are estimates that think it possibly could have been around for about 20 million years before that point in time. But there's a lot of different opinions on that. And they're known to have lived in several different areas of the world. So since they lived in the ocean, they were actually able to travel a lot, like animals who live in the reptiles who live in the oceans now still do. So they lived in the area that we know today to be the Western Interior Seaway of North America, and the Mediterranean Sea between Europe and Africa. However, fossils have been discovered as far south as Seymour Island, which is actually off the very end tip of South America, down in the Antarctic Peninsula. And if you guys remember from the first week, so this is that chart that shows you when the dinosaur lived. And we're talking about this area right in here. Now, if the Mosasaurus had actually lived longer than just the Maastrichtian age, they could have lived really during any of these times during the Upper Cretaceous period, but it's just going to be right here in this range, very towards the end of the Mesozoic era. And these are the different areas that the Mosasaurus is known to have lived. So remember how I told you we've got the Western Interior Seaway of North America, which is this area right here. And a lot of this water might have actually come up over North America. This is what North America is formed to be. So they would have been able to go all the way through this water area. And this is the area that's at the time would have been called the Mediterranean Tethys. But this is what formed to be the Mediterranean Sea. And this is the continent of Africa and Europe. And then this is the area I was talking about where Seymour Island is. So Seymour Island is a teeny little island right off the coast of, so this is Antarctica right here down at the bottom, and this is South America, and Seymour Island is right in this area. So that's where this star is right here on the right-hand side in the present. So you can see where all these areas are now, but this is what the Earth would have looked like at the time. So how did the Mosasaurus get its name? Well, it's pronounced Mosasaurus, and their name comes from the Latin word mosa, which means muse, river, and the Greek word saurus, which means lizard. And this name was given to them because the very first remains of a mosasaur were actually found close to the Meuse River, which is located in the town of Maastricht in the Netherlands. So when was the Mosasaurus discovered? Well, the Mosasaurus was first discovered about 300 years ago in the 1700s. However, the fossils were first thought to have been the bones of crocodiles or whales. And one particular skull that was discovered around the year 1780 was actually transported to Paris because it was suspected to have high scientific value. So you can see on the map here on the right, this is actually the Netherlands right here. And this is the area where the first bones were found. And in 1808, so about 30 years after the skull was discovered and transported to Paris, there was a man named Georges Cuvier, and he concluded that it belonged to a group of giant marine lizards, which was very different than any animal that was currently alive. But it wasn't until 1822 that this man right here, his name is William Daniel Conybeare, he named the reptile Mosasaurus. And that was in reference to where the fossils were actually found, near the Meuse River in the Netherlands. So what did the Mosasaurus look like? Well, the Mosasaurus was part of a group of prehistoric reptiles known as mosasaurs. And even though these reptiles were not related to the dinosaurs, they were very closely related to what modern snakes and lizards are like. So yes, this is a dinosaur program, but I also wanted to touch in on some other prehistoric reptiles that were alive in the area because some of these reptiles were very, very cool. And the Mosasaurus had a very long streamlined body, and they had 4 paddle-like limbs. So in this picture, you can see 3, but there's actually a 4th one that's on this side of their body as well. And they had a very long and powerful tail that helped them glide through the water really easily. And they could grow up to be 50 feet long, and they could weigh as much as 11,000 pounds. So that's about the same weight as a fully grown elephant. Now, one of the notable features of the Mosasaurus is their jaw. And you can tell from this picture that this is a very scary looking reptile that you would not want to run into in the ocean. Now, their jaw could be as much as 10% of their entire body length. So if you had a Mosasaurus that was 50 feet long, that means their jaw would have been 5 feet long, which is huge. So what did the Mosasaurus eat? Well, scientists don't quite know what the Mosasaurus ate 100%, but just from a lot of the fossil remains, and you can tell from these depictions that it's thought that they would have eaten pretty much anything that they came across. They were definitely a carnivore. You can tell by all the different kinds of teeth that they had. And a lot of the fossils have found remains of certain animals inside. So you can tell that they were definitely a meat-eating reptile. But they most likely preyed on sharks, any kind of seabird, and even other mosasaurs. So even other reptiles that lived in the ocean at the time. And you can tell here from this picture, this is actually the size of a great white shark next to a mosasaurus. So these things were really huge. But luckily for the Mosasaurus, they actually had a special talent that made it much easier for them to eat prey that was this large. And they actually had a double jointed jaw, which meant that they were able to unhinge their jaw and they could swallow their prey whole. So they didn't really have to chew anything. So what are some fun facts about the Mosasaurus? Well, the most complete skeleton of a Mosasaurus is on display at the Museum of Geology at the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology. So you can see it in this picture on the right, this really long snake-like skeleton, that is a Mosasaurus. And the skeleton is so large that it's almost impossible to get a picture of the entire skeleton in one shot. So you can see here, the very end of the picture, part of the skeleton is cut off. It is really hard to get it in one picture because it is so big. And another fun fact, the Mosasaurus was actually endothermic, which means they would be able to keep a constant temperature of warm blood inside their body, even if their outside environment wasn't warm. And this feature would have allowed the Mosasaurus to live in very cold climates. Like, remember how we mentioned that they were found off the coast of Seymour Island in the Antarctic Peninsula. So that would have been very, very cold. Like at the time that the Mosasaurus was alive, and the sea temperatures would have been a little bit above freezing, around 40 degrees. And the Mosasaurus would have been able to survive because they think that they were endothermic. So they would have been able to stay warm even if their outside cold water temperature was not warm. And one of the really cool things about the Mosasaurus was that even though they were related to snakes and lizards, they were actually thought to be really similar to whales. So modern whales in the ocean today give birth to live babies, and they don't like lay eggs like other reptiles do. And Mosasaurus, even though it was a reptile, gave birth to live babies. So this is obviously a picture of a humpback whale. This is a humpback whale and a baby whale. And I put that picture there because this was supposed to have thought to have been really similar to the way that Mosasaurus gave birth. And additionally, they spent a lot of time near the ocean surface since scientists thought that they breathed air in a really similar way. So this is a lot like what it would have looked like to have a Mosasaurus in the ocean. And that is all for this week in the Mosasaurus. So since we're all finished with this prehistoric reptile, it's not a dinosaur, but it's a prehistoric reptile. We're going to put it on the map. And if you notice, we actually put them in 3 different locations here because these are all the different areas that scientists thought the Mosasaurus lived. And as a reminder, each week we're just going to continue to add whichever dinosaur or prehistoric reptile we talk about. We're going to add it to the map. And at the end, we'll have everybody that we talked about on one map so you can see where they lived. So next week, we're going to tune back in and we are going to explore a new prehistoric creature. So notice I said prehistoric creature and not dinosaur. So this is a recently discovered flying reptile, and it's considered to be the bat of prehistoric times, the Ichi. All right, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.